Okay, we're live.
Yay.
Hey, welcome to the Joseph. By the way, Seth, we got a prop today. This is Doug Hyde's Nez Perce woman.
Which is beautiful.
Which is beautiful. And Doug did the statue outside at Wallowa, the Nez Perce return. And in these COVID times, when you can't come into the building, you can go and look at that statue out front, okay? Okay, our guest today is Peter Ferre, who is part of an ad hoc kind of a committee that's investigating the recycling situation in Wallowa County.
Yeah.
So Peter started off and give a little background on the whole recycling mess,
Sure.
and then we'll go into the particulars.
Well, and Rich, if you don't mind, and everybody, I've got a variety of notes put down, and Rich had mentioned I'm part of very much of an ad hoc recycling task force that we asked the county commissioners if it could be formed. And they granted us the ability to form a task force to work on finding ideas, solutions, etc., to the recycling dilemma that we're facing around the country, but even more specifically in smaller rural communities. But I first just wanted to share some ideas with everybody about why recycling is a good idea. Because I know as I'm out speaking with people, I hear a lot of different opinions. I hear some people say, oh, recycling doesn't make any sense because everything just gets thrown in the ocean. And I want to share with y'all, yeah, there's a lot of plastic in the ocean, but it's not primarily from recycling operations in the United States. Years ago, a lot of recycling went to China. Some of those recyclables may or may not have properly been recycled. Now there are markets in America where all of our recycling can go. Every year, in the University of Georgia stated this, 18 billion pounds of plastic winds up in the ocean. 18 billion pounds, and they put it in perspective. It's enough plastic trash to cover every foot of coastline around the world with 5 full trash bags of plastic annually. So one reason recycling is a good idea is to keep some of that stuff out of the ocean.
Right.
My daughter's a marine biology major. She's studying, she was in the South Pacific, 2 days sail from any island, and she still found microbes of plastic in little fish in the South Pacific, 2 days sail from any island. Some simple things, 75% of the stuff that goes into landfills it would be the equivalent of removing 50 million cars from the road in the US. And that's if we nationally did that. And we need to start here with each of our families, each of our households, each of our counties, and what we can do to cumulatively impact that. One other statistic, Rich and I go to a lot of basketball games, Rich to watch his grandson in the years past and myself to watch my son. And at every basketball game, there's trash cans at our high schools full of plastic bottles. And you've noticed that, I've noticed that. Every plastic bottle, if it was recycled, saves enough energy to run a 100-watt bulb for 4 hours. So just in our little county, if we recycled all the plastic bottles we generated, we would enable enough energy to be saved to run over 1 million 100-watt light bulbs for 4 hours. So I share that. There's a lot of other statistics,
Yeah.
but I share that there's a lot of reasons to recycle for our environment, for our oceans, for our economics. It saves money for our air, for our water. One that's very specific to us here in the county is for our landfill. We have Ant Flat landfill.
Right.
Landfills have a lifespan. I've heard different numbers that Ant Flat has another 10 years to another 50 years left in its lifespan. I don't know the answer yet. I've contacted the DEQ to ask them for some more information about how much time left our landfill has. But for every pound of material we bring to the recycle yard, not only are we helping our water, our air, having to haul all of our trash out of the county to another location, which likewise would be very expensive. So there's some really specific reasons, whether you're an environmental activist or not, whichever side of the aisle you vote on, there's some really strong reasons for us here in the county, for our kids, for our grandkids, for us to, with everything we possibly can, to recycle. So that's just a little bit of background without boring you, but it's sometimes fun if you just get online and look up recycling. You'll find amazing statistics.
So do you think that, the current crisis we've got going here, giving away my age, but you actually could get milk delivered to your door in a bottle,
Right.
and then you'd put the bottle out the next day, and they'd wash that bottle and bring it back to you with more milk in it the next day. And in fact, Trey, my grandson, was asking me about that the attention to recycling and the attention maybe to quality of items, and maybe we can refill our growlers instead of buying 6-packs.
Well, and Rich, you're talking about the motto, the slogan, reduce, reuse, recycle.
Yeah.
And I find that a lot now. I used to use plastic Tupperware containers to keep my food in because it was just kind of, it's what my mom did.
Yeah.
So it's what I did. Now, when I use up my tomato sauce jar, I wash it out, and that's what I store my food in. So
there you go.
now I'm eliminating those plastic Tupperware containers, which in most cases, a lot of recycle yards don't accept them. Mm-hmm. So that's a place of washing out your growler, or
that's like it's pre-recycling, the stuff we can do at home to reduce even the stuff we take to the recycling.
Yeah.
But we still end up having stuff that we
still have stuff we have to recycle. And that reminds me of something I had read about recycling being this new thing. And the reality of it is, I mean, our grandparents and great-grandparents, depending on our ages, 75 years ago, they reused everything.
Yeah.
They didn't have the capacity to take a container and just throw it away.
Yeah.
And that worked because they didn't have the capacity to do that. They couldn't haul their trash someplace. We need to get back to what we've been doing for most of the millennia in the way we do things. We need to bring our coffee cup to the coffee shop. We don't need a plastic cup. And I just want to make a point. I was at the recycle yard the other day, and somebody was there, and I know their heart was totally in the right place, and they finished their coffee, and they threw the coffee cup in the cardboard section.
Okay.
Right? Thinking, hey, I'm doing a great job. I'm even recycling my coffee cup. But coffee cups are not recyclable because they have a plastic liner on the inside. And they're contaminated by the coffee. So we can't do that. And thank you for doing that. I did that in the past until I learned that was the wrong thing to do. The best thing to do is let's just bring our Ted Juvie mug to the coffee shop.
There you go.
And get that filled and support Ted locally and keep things out of the trash and then in turn out of the
So
recycling.
how big a problem is incorrect recycling?
So let me. That's a great point. I'm going to answer that question if you don't mind.
Okay.
I'm going to go a little bit backwards, just to give everybody an idea. In the past, here in the county, our recycle yards in Wallowa, because there was a drop-off place in Wallowa, a drop-off place in Lostine, one in Joseph, and then the yard in Enterprise. We accepted tin cans, soup cans, vegetable cans, things like that. We accepted aluminum cans. We accepted newspaper and magazines. We accepted mixed paper, junk mail, things like that. And just a white envelope that has the plastic window in it is recyclable.
Oh, okay.
They can process that. So
Good.
so everyone knows. We used to accept sorted office paper, cardboard, glass, and plastics. And we even also used to accept baling twine. That blue,
really?
nasty stuff that if you have horses is in little shreds all over your yard, we used to accept that.
Yeah.
Today, the only recyclables that are accepted here in the countywide, are cardboard, 1, 2, and 3 plastics. So that's not yogurt containers. If you look at the bottom, it has to have a 1, a 2, or a 3 on it.
Okay.
And newspaper, magazines, and paper mixed together. That's all we accept. So we used to accept 9 different things, and now we accept 3 or 4.
So in the plastic, we're still recycling plastic, and I go down there, and I think I'm being fairly conscientious, but I look in there, and there are yogurt containers and sour cream containers and detergent containers and what. So how how is that handled?
Right.
We can't go through there and pluck out all the yogurt containers.
Yeah. So, and two parts to that, and I did a little bit of a misstatement. Until we ship off the load that we're accumulating right now, Mike down at the recycle yard still does accept yogurt containers.
Oh, okay.
So until this load is completed, we still accept 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7s.
Oh.
Okay. We still don't accept the clamshell containers, even though
Right.
they have a 1 on them.
Yeah.
It's a different 1. We can't accept that. But if I take my milk jug, which is very highly valuable as a recyclable, which it's a number 2, I think, and I leave the lid on it, it diminishes the value. So Mike down in the recycle yard does not pluck every lid off, but he has to sort through and take the junk out, take out the motor oil container that somebody put in conscientiously, but it's got motor oil in it. We can't send that.
Right.
What happens is when the recyclables go to a recycle yard, they get graded.
Okay.
And the grading's a little loose, right? So they don't inspect every single bundle, but they're going to start just paying you based on your historical grading records.
Okay.
The higher quality the recyclable is, the more money you will get. And so, and the more money we as a county will save, because Mike, who's a full-time employee, is not spending all of his time taking unrecyclables that someone thought was recyclable or trash. For example, your cardboard box, cardboard's recyclable, but the styrofoam that's in there, which stinks, and you should write to the company and say, could you stop using styrofoam? But that's not recyclable. Don't put it in the recycle yard, because
Right.
Mike has to pull it out and spend time sifting through, pulling it out, throwing it away, and then going back to processing the rest of the recyclables.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, we good?
Yeah. No, that I guess the point there, you kind of got into it. You kind of got into the economics. But before that, I want to let people out there know, if you have a question, please, what Seth, they should just type it in, right?
Just type it in. There's a little chat box on the right.
Chat box on the right.
And if you don't see the chat box, then click the link to the title on YouTube. It'll bring you to YouTube itself. You'll be able to see the chat box.
Okay. So all you techies out there will figure that out. Okay, so talk a little bit about the economics of this.
Yeah, and that's really fundamentally, we've had a recycling program here since the 90s.
Right.
It was started by a bunch of local private citizens,
Right.
Magpie, Rusty Hogue, and a bunch of other people. Started it as a private endeavor. The county took it over, not exactly sure when. And right now, the biggest challenge to our recycling program is the economics of it.
Right.
So to speak candidly, right now, recycling commodity prices are very low. Cardboard prices are pretty strong. Number 2, plastic, which is milk jugs, are pretty strong. Aluminum is pretty strong. But a lot of the other prices aren't. So if you do a cost analysis and you look at the amount of revenue that we bring in from selling our recyclables, and then you subtract from that the cost of having an employee, of having balers, of having a recycle yard, we lose money relative to if you just look at revenue and costs.
Right.
But real costs. If you look, I'm not even using the right term, I'm not an economist, but if you look at the additional costs of shortened lifespan of the landfill, and if you look at additional costs of the economic costs and the environmental costs of plastic pollution, affecting our fisheries, affecting our forests, affecting our rivers, then the numbers turn. Unfortunately, the county doesn't receive money for those costs. Someone's not paying us $1 for every dollar we save for the landfill. But we need to look at the numbers that way and realize that this is the revenue, these are the costs that we can write down on a piece of paper, but here's the additional revenue that we can accumulate or costs we can save through keeping our landfill open longer
Right.
and taking care of the earth that we live in, our kids live in, our grandkids live in, et cetera.
And you actually hit on another one earlier. By by being mindful in our own homes, we can even limit the amount of stuff we put into recycling
Yeah.
by refilling our coffee jug.
And you know, it'd be fun, Rich. I didn't think about this. For all of us to do a challenge and challenge our friends and our families to do this for like the next, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 weeks, is to really look carefully at what am I buying? Do I have to buy this?
Right.
I've gotten kind of religious about if it's individually wrapped in plastic, I don't buy it. So I used to buy the Tillamook cheese slices that were like 12 to a package. Now I buy the Tillamook, block. It's still wrapped in plastic, but you get a lot more slices out of it. And I've really noticed how my waste, the amount of trash bags
Goes down.
I take and flat has gone down dramatically.
What's been the impact of the single-use bags and the supermarkets doing away with them?
And I don't know. I haven't done any research.
It's pretty interesting. We did a highway pickup. Rotary did last week, and I think there were 5 or 6 of us, and we found like 3 of those bags on the road. And they were blowing all over the place.
That's amazing.
So we can change our habits.
We can very much change our
We can do things.
Yeah.
What's the most okay, so right now cardboard. Oh, by the way, on cardboard, you see all kinds of crap in the cardboard bin too.
Right.
Cereal boxes?
Yeah. Technically, the cardboard that has the high value that should be baled together is what's called OCC, and that stands for Old Corrugated Cardboard. Corrugated means it's got the wiggly things in between it.
Yeah.
So cereal boxes technically should not be in there.
Right.
Cereal boxes should be in the mixed paper.
Oh, they can go to mixed paper?
They can go in mixed paper.
All right, there you go, folks.
And you know what? I'm 85% sure they can go in mixed paper.
Okay.
So I will double check that.
You double check, okay.
Pizza boxes. This is something to educate
yeah.
everybody about. So you got the top and the bottom of the pizza box.
Right.
Usually one side of it's got pizza grease on it.
Yeah.
That's not recyclable. The folks who recycle corrugated stuff, they can't work with the grease that's soaked into that. So rip your cardboard box in half, throw the bottom part away in the trash, or put it out in your garden and use it as a composting, put it in your compost pile. And then the top part, put that at the recycle yard because it doesn't have the grease on the top of it.
Perfect.
So that's kind of a simple one. Yeah. So kind of the threats to our recycle program, because the county wants to have recycling, we're just trying to figure out how to balance it. So one is just the economics of how do we get the dollars and cents to work for themselves. And again, the value of recyclables, it's a commodity pricing thing. Right now, tin is very low, so we haven't had anybody who would pick our tin up for quite a while. So soup cans, things like that. Well, I called a recycle yard in Hermiston, and they said, hey, we'll give you $40 a ton for that tin if I can get it to them myself. So I've asked the county if they'll let me do it, and I'm waiting to hear back. I'm gonna take a hay trailer that I borrow from my neighbors, my 1-ton pickup truck, and I'm gonna make 3 trips back and forth to Hermiston to get rid of the tin. It'll generate about $1,100 for the county. So there is a market for all these things. It's just sometimes the prices are less than the transportation is. So the value of the recyclables is an issue, as is our transportation costs.
Okay, now transportation, it used to be that, what's his name, Terry in Lostine was always looking for backhauls to Portland or along the way, because he'd haul farm equipment, all kinds of stuff this way. Are there commercial truckers out there that are looking for backhauls now?
To the best of our knowledge, there are. Transportation, we just learned that if we could use dry vans, which would be an enclosed semi, versus flatbeds.
Yeah.
And right now, all of our recyclables are only loaded on flatbeds because we have bales of recyclables and a forklift. The forklift has to lift up and load from the side of the van. It can't do it from the back.
Okay.
Because we don't have a ramp. We don't have a loading ramp. So if we had a loading ramp in which to load dry vans, we would save 33% on our transportation costs. Just bam, right there. Because there's more dry vans out there, the price is more competitive for that as a shipping vehicle. But then secondly, and this is just in all fairness, the county employees are very tapped out with their responsibilities. So we want to propose having within this task force where we are doing the research to find backhaulers, to see who's leaving here. Is a farm supply truck leaving here? Is a Safeway truck leaving here? Is a whoever truck leaving here that has an empty rig that would help us save money on transportation? And with a loading ramp, we could load them up and off they go, and would save us some money in transportation.
So that gets me to another thing you were talking about earlier, is the fact that our recyclables get baled up and they sit out in the weather and degrade. And you'd like to have a hay shed out there that you could put everything under. So in the best of all possible worlds, it looks to me like there are ways that you could make some capital investment that it's hard to come up with now.
Right.
But if you could make the capital investment, you could. It would impact us economically.
It would impact
a
the
great
revenue.
deal in the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we need some.
And there's a couple pieces to this. Recycling right now is something where in most markets it costs more to run recycling programs in actual dollars and cents, not counting environmental costs, landfill depreciation, things like that. It costs more than it generates.
Okay.
And so we all have to make a decision: is keeping our environment clean, is reusing materials again and again. Glass and aluminum have an indefinite lifespan to be recycled. You could recycle a glass bottle for infinity, and you could recycle an aluminum can for infinity, forever, over and over and over again, and not have to dig up any more of the raw materials necessary for that. So we've got to kind of make a decision that recycling is important.
Well, look at what we did with the bottle law. People screamed at the bottle law, and now we don't scream at all about 10 cents for
That's
a
right.
bottle. And maybe that's the end of things ultimately, that we have to go. Have you got a question?
Yes, we've had a couple of great points. Randy's let us know that aluminum, if separately baled, would bring us $600 or more.
$660 a ton, yep.
Thrown away.
Wow.
Other people are asking for better clarification on signs and directions and verbiage would be helpful. And another person has asked, could we use the railroad to move recyclables out? Would there have to be a large volume?
So that's a great question, and some of these questions I'm not going to be able to answer because we just don't know yet. What Randy said is very true. We get $40 a ton for a bale of tin that has aluminum mixed into it, but if that same bale was all aluminum, we would get $660 a ton. Okay,
Wow.
Big difference. So
that's something we can do right away, can't
That's
we?
something
Have
we can do
another.
right
We've
away.
got extra bins there. Why don't we have aluminum bin?
Get to in a second some of the suggestions we as a task force are working on, and one of them is signage and the structure of the recycling yard, right? So for example, can we have really good signage and a magnet? If the tin can attaches to the magnet, it goes through this hole. If it doesn't, it goes through that hole. Real simple. It's something one of the task force members said they used in Alaska when she worked on a research station down there, and it's kind of a no-brainer. Railroad transportation, I don't know. We have to look and see what the options are with that. We know there are transportation options that we're just not using right now because folks just haven't had the time to find them.
Right.
We also know that there's a lot of folks like me who are pretty busy, but I've got some time, and I'd be happy as a clam to haul a load or two of tin to Hermiston every 2 weeks, once a month, every other month. I don't need a lot of money. If the county could write me a tax receipt where I could just write off my mileage and my fuel. So some of this is going to be community involvement as well, with each of us maybe taking some ownership in what can I do to clean up what I'm dropping off, to maybe help with hauling things, etc. Let me just kind of jump in and share some of the solutions that we see. One, which I think everyone who uses a recycling yard would agree with, and it's a no-brainer, is dramatically improve signage. We need to know what we can put in that spot.
And then we have to teach people to read.
And then we have to teach people to read those things. So that could be a combination of signage with, for a period of time, some volunteer docents
Oh, yeah.
to be able to say, hey, nope, that
Clamshells, no.
clamshells can't. They say number one, but you can't put that in there. So we're committed to finding the funds to create the signage. We're committed to doing some simple layout things at the recycle yard to make it easier to know this can go into this spot, this can go into that spot. For example, mixed paper, which is just all the paper bundled up. I don't remember the number, but so don't hold me to this, but let me just make up a number and say you get $25 a ton for that. Sorted office paper, so any of the paper that would come through in an office, you can get up to $100 to $150 a ton for
Wow.
that. So we should be separating those. We should have a system for separating those. That requires the layout of the yard, and then it requires all of us paying attention to what we can drop off.
And we're going to have to learn as we go.
Yeah.
We're going to have to figure out this cereal box thing.
The cereal box thing is, yeah, and I apologize. I was told by one entity that the cereal boxes could be in mixed paper.
Yeah.
So I don't want to hold
We
everybody
know
on
for
that.
now that cereal boxes in the bottom half of pizza things do not go
in
in
the
the
cardboard. That is very
Okay.
correct. So we're working on the signage and the proper layout of the recycle yard. That's one of the suggestions we want to make to the county commissioners. And I want to mention, so the task force that I'm a part of is a group of volunteers, local residents, who are all pretty passionate about this. And if any of you have ideas for us, Seth is going to put up our email address, WallowaCountyRecycles@gmail.com. We are going to be making a presentation to the county commissioners.
Wallowa County Recycling at gmail.com. That's what I got on this paper.
Yeah, it's WallowaCountyRecycling@gmail.com.
Okay.
Yes, WallowaCountyRecycling@gmail.com. We're going to be making a presentation to the county commissioners on May 20th at 9 a.m. It's a monthly commissioners meeting. Everybody's invited. I want to encourage us, and it might be a Zoom meeting, but I want to encourage us, let's all be there. The commissioners need to see we care, and there's a lot of the voting public that wants us to have a recycling program. At that May 20th meeting, we're going to be presenting kind of a phased approach, but signage is part of that. Creating whether it's one person or a team that is actively searching for buyers for our recycling. This is a fluid market. One buyer will give you $40 a ton today, and the group down the road will give you $50 a ton. The $50 a ton people next month, they only give you $20, but now the 40 guys up to $60. So you got to have somebody who's got the time to do that. So we're proposing that. One of our big focuses on how can we lower the transportation cost through volunteer, through backhauling, through building a loading dock, et cetera, because transportation is a big issue. In a lot of cases, all the value we would get in selling the recycles, we're losing it to the trucking company, right? So we've got to figure out a better system for that. And we don't have all the answers for that, but we know we're working on that one. One of our big suggestions is to improve the education, not just at the recycling yard, but for the whole community. The education about what can and cannot be recycled. So this will be through newspaper articles, Facebook, social media, going to town hall meetings, going to Grange meetings, going to Rotary meetings to help educate everybody. Here's how this works. Here's what we can do. Here's why recycle. It'll be finding some funding to help the schools start recycling programs.
Right.
So all those plastic Gatorade bottles at the end of a basketball game all wind up getting recycled. They don't get put in another plastic bag and brought to the landfill and sit there for 1,000 years before they degrade. We also want to really look at what was the problem with having recycled drop-off in Wallowa, Lostine, and Joseph. A lot of it was there was a lot of junk that was put in there, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
People dropped off their couches and their studded tires.
they did, and we've got to find a solution to that. Of the county, and that's a county responsibility. It's all of our responsibility to help self-monitor each other. But we would like to have recycled drop-offs back in those places because it makes a difference.
So I'll give you an example. When I moved here 49 years ago, the dump, there was a dump, but there were also informal dumps all over the place. You'd be driving out in the country and there was a place that was kind of a hole in the ground that all the neighbors dumped their trash in.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
We somehow educated ourselves out of that.
Yeah.
if we saw somebody out with a pickup load on Hurricane Creek off to the side, dumping it, somebody'd stop and say, hey, you can't do that, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think, we have to educate ourselves, and we can do it.
And I think, Rich, your example earlier about plastic shopping bags, I know a lot of folks were up in an uproar about that. And now everyone's at the grocery store, happy as a clam, no problem at all, and it worked. It's worked fine. So this is something that we can do. Rich was mentioning a hay shed, some type of structure to store our recycles in when they're baled for two reasons. One, to prevent them from getting degraded by the sun and the weather because they lose value. But two, for us to be able to work the market. If I grow wheat, I store my wheat, and if the market's low this year, I'm going to hold my wheat till the market's higher. Right. Well, we can start having some trend analysis, which we haven't done before. If we know that right now tin is at a 5-year low, then maybe we just say, hey, we've got the storage capacity. Let's just hold on to our tin. Because commodity prices go up and down. They cycle. History shows that. Let's hold on to it till the tin prices come up. Right. And then we'll bring it to the recycling center or to the recycling buyers who can purchase that.
To the marketplace.
So we're going to look for grants, donations. There could be some kind of donation that we start asking the community for. I don't know. There could be government grants, DEQ grants.
What if we had a little thing down there at recycling, and every time we went down there, we dropped $1 in?
That could be a great idea. I mean, there is a cost to this. We can't just drop our trash off at the dump for free. Right. So we've got to find a balance, a right format. Right. The county, a couple of the suggestions the county's made is to have, you can't recycle unless you pay money to do that. We've got to look at how that works.
But on a voluntary basis.
Maybe on a voluntary basis that could work. The county's considered closing the recycling center to only be open a couple days a week. And, for a lot of us, that makes it very difficult to get the recyclables there. But if we can't get to a place where people are managing what they're dropping off, are honoring the systems, then that might be what has to happen. And I don't like that idea. I like the fact that I can be coming into Enterprise on a Friday evening and I can drop off my recycles. We as a county need to then honor bringing the right things. We as a task force need to elicit the help from the county to put the right signage up to make sure what we're getting is the right stuff. And you guys, a big part of this too is we need to recycle more stuff. We have a full-time employee. He's got the ability to do a lot more than the material is there for right now. Oh. So if we had more cardboard, more tin, more glass, and right now the county is not accepting glass. Right. And I think we should. I think we should take glass, grind it up, because the market for it is very cheap right now. The price is very low. Grind it up, and then whether we resell it at some low price to be used as a fill in aggregate. Right. I'll put it around my culverts. I'll use it in my driveway fill. It's proven to be a great aggregate amendment. So when we're building our roads, rather than having those huge piles of gravel out the Zumwalt Road, whatever the road that is, out Zumwalt, some of that could be ground up glass from our leftover whiskey bottle or our leftover wine bottle. That'd be beautiful. That'd be beautiful. So May 20th is when we're having our commissioners meeting. We're doing our darndest to come up with some good ideas and to create some change. We need help from the community with this change because we're just a bunch of random people that have kind of forced ourselves as a task force upon the county. And now we need the support of the community to say, hey, this is important to me. I'll haul the baling twine to Portland myself and drop it off there because that stuff's just, it's all over the place. It's a never-ending.
It was terrible on our highway cleanup. That was little bits of baling twine everywhere along the highway. Yeah. Hey, what about electronics? They go not to recycling, but they go to the dump, and then they are recycled.
They are recycled.
Okay.
And an interesting fact I didn't share earlier. So in Oregon, there are some laws pertaining to the size of communities. A community of a certain size, and my numbers are that big. We're just below it. We're just under the guideline in enterprise. So our whole recycling program could just be canceled. And there's no there's no legal state pressure to prevent that from happening. There are some requirements that the state has: electronics recycling, used motor oil recycling, all of which take place up at Ant Flat, and those, to the best of my knowledge, are required by the state that has to take
Okay.
place. So we can take our TVs up there, we can take our motor oil up there, but we can't take our tin cans up there yet.
Just wrapping up, how could someone get into this meeting on May 20th? You know how we can get involved? What time it is?
What I would ask people to do, because I don't know the Zoom links right now, so if you're interested in getting into the May 20th meeting, please send me an email.
Yeah, email at that address.
To the Wallowa County Recycling at gmail.com, and I will then send out an email to you with instructions of how to join, either what time the meeting is if it's live, I don't think it will be, or how to join it in a Zoom format.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we probably better wrap her up, huh?
This has been
Thank
great.
you very much, Peter. And if anybody has questions, you've got an address there. And next week, Seth, we have music, right?
Margot.
Yeah, next
terrific.
week we have music, and I'm talking to Nathan Slinker about doing something about the Saturday markets.
Oh, beautiful.
And I'm talking to a baker with a daughter who's a baker about having a baking from her kitchen down the street here. But
That sounds
anyway, we've got programs coming up. Thank you very much. Oh, one more thing I got to get in there. Go to if you're on the Giuseppe webpage, go to exhibits. We have a very cool virtual exhibit up of vintage postcards from Wallowa County 1906 to 1915, curated by David Weaver, the collection of Edsel White. And it's a very cool, we're releasing one postcard a day, and we're going to end it with a Zoom party on May 29th. So take a look at that one too.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for coming.